The protagonist of this story had always felt drawn to the majesty of the mountains. From an early age, they loved hiking, exploring, and being outdoors in nature. Growing up, the protagonist's family enjoyed camping trips and adventures in the mountains, which instilled in them a deep appreciation for the natural world. As the protagonist got older, they began to develop a particular fascination with mountaineering. They read books about famous climbers, pored over maps of mountain ranges, and dreamed of one day tackling the world's highest peaks. Although they didn't know anyone who actually practiced mountaineering, the protagonist was determined to learn and explore on their own. One summer, the protagonist convinced a friend to join them on their first real mountain climb. They chose a peak that was challenging but not too difficult, with a well-marked trail and a popular summit. On the day of the climb, the two friends woke up early, packed their gear, and set off up the mountain. The protagonist remembers feeling nervous and exhilarated as they climbed higher and higher, surrounded by stunning views of the valley below. As they reached the top, exhausted but elated, the protagonist knew that they were hooked on mountaineering for life. The sense of accomplishment, the beauty of the mountains, and the adrenaline rush of pushing oneself to the limit were all too addictive to resist. From that day on, the protagonist was determined to become an accomplished mountaineer, tackling ever more challenging peaks and testing their limits. Their journey would be marked by personal doubts, physical challenges, and dangerous conditions, but the love for the mountains would always be there to carry them forward. The protagonist's passion for mountaineering drove them to take on increasingly difficult climbs. However, their journey was not without personal doubts and physical challenges. One of the protagonist's biggest obstacles was their own self-doubt. They often felt unprepared or unworthy to take on ambitious climbs. They questioned their own abilities and worried about their safety. However, through persistence and dedication, the protagonist found ways to push past these self-doubts. They trained rigorously, sought advice from experienced climbers, and worked on building up their mental toughness. Over time, the protagonist discovered that they were capable of more than they had imagined. Physical challenges also presented obstacles for the protagonist. They encountered various health issues, such as asthma and chronic pain, that made it difficult to thrive in intense physical conditions. Despite these difficulties, the protagonist refused to let these challenges stop them from achieving their goals. They worked closely with their doctors and trainers to find ways to manage their conditions and control their pain. The protagonist also had to deal with dangerous and unpredictable conditions on their climbs. Experienced mountaineers know that weather conditions and other factors can make climbing incredibly tough. The protagonist encountered treacherous terrain, harsh weather, and difficult obstacles. Yet through perseverance and determination, they found ways to push through. As the protagonist tackled more difficult climbs, they grew more confident in their own abilities. They learned to trust themselves and their training, and as a result, they became accomplished mountaineers. They pushed themselves to reach their full potential and proved that with hard work and determination, anything is possible. The protagonist's journey as a mountaineer was marked by many key turning points and experiences that helped shape their outlook on mountaineering and life in general. One of these turning points came when the protagonist attempted to summit a high-altitude mountain in the Himalayas. As they were nearing the summit, they encountered unexpected weather conditions that made the climb extremely difficult. The protagonist was pushed to their limits physically and mentally, and they were forced to make a difficult decision to turn back. Although they did not reach the summit on that particular climb, the experience taught the protagonist the importance of being respectful of nature and the consequences of taking risks without fully appreciating the risks involved. Another significant moment came when the protagonist served as a guide for a group of mountaineers undertaking a challenging climb. During the climb, one of the group members began to struggle, and the protagonist had to step up and support them. Through this experience, the protagonist learned the value of teamwork, compassion, and support in building a successful group dynamic and completing challenging tasks. The protagonist also found inspiration and guidance by learning from experienced climbers that they met during their journeys. They learned about the importance of prioritizing safety and knowing their own limits, as well as the significance of respecting the culture and traditions of the communities that they encountered. Throughout their journey, the protagonist learned many valuable lessons that went beyond mountaineering. They realized the importance of patience, resilience, and persistence, not only in climbing but also in life. They discovered that with hard work, passion, and dedication, anything is possible, and the lessons and skills learned through mountaineering could be applied to other areas of their life, both personally and professionally. The protagonist's love for mountaineering and the lessons they learned through their journey shaped their outlook on life and inspired them to continue to push themselves to new heights, both on and off the mountain. The protagonist's passion for climbing was first ignited during their childhood, and they went on a hiking trip with their family. They were captivated by the steep rocky terrain and the sense of accomplishment that came with reaching the summit of the mountain. As they grew older, the protagonist started to indulge in more adventurous activities like rock climbing and bouldering. They would often go to local climbing gyms to perfect their skills. As their abilities grew and their confidence increased, the protagonist started to explore outdoor climbing in nearby areas and small mountains. The protagonist's early climbing expeditions were mostly local, focusing on nearby peaks and challenging hiking trails. They climbed the likes of Mount Diablo in California and Mount Hood in Oregon. These early expeditions were exciting and helped foster the protagonist's love for climbing, but they knew that they were ready to take on more challenging climbs. Eventually, the protagonist's desire to take on more formidable mountain peaks grew when they learned about some of the world's highest peaks, like Mount Everest, K2, and Annapurna. The protagonist's love for mountaineering turned into an obsession, and they began to save money, gather equipment, and find partners who could accompany them on ambitious climbing missions. After months of planning and researching, the protagonist decided to take on some of the world's most iconic peaks. Although the challenge ahead was daunting, the protagonist's passion for climbing and desire to reach new heights drove them, and they were prepared to tackle anything that lay ahead. The protagonist's early climbing expeditions helped them grow as a climber, and they gained the experience, knowledge, and confidence that would prove valuable as they ventured into more challenging climbs. Their journey had only begun, but they were ready to take on any adversity that came their way. To take on some of the world's highest peaks, the protagonist knew that they had to be physically and mentally prepared. They underwent extensive training, which included both physical and mental preparation. The protagonist's physical training was rigorous and included strength training, cardiovascular exercise, and endurance training. They worked with a personal trainer to develop a training program that was tailored to their needs and abilities. The training focused on building the strength and endurance needed to carry heavy equipment, climb steep terrain, and withstand harsh weather conditions. The protagonist's physical training also included outdoor training on local mountains that were challenging. They hiked and climbed on these mountains, carrying backpacks filled with weights, practicing technical climbing, and acclimatizing to high altitudes. These training sessions proved invaluable as they helped build the stamina and endurance needed to take on long climbs. The protagonist's mental training was equally important as they prepared to take on some of the world's highest peaks. They worked on building their mental resilience, focus, and determination. They practiced visualization techniques to help them remain focused on their goal and stay positive during challenging times. To prepare for the mental demands of the climb, the protagonist also read several books, watched videos, and talked with experienced climbers to understand the challenges that lay ahead. They studied the cultures and traditions of the regions they would be visiting. This helped them understand the people and the environment they would be encountering. It also helped them appreciate the importance of being respectful of nature and the communities they would be visiting. The protagonist's training was not just focused on physical and mental preparation. They also spent a significant amount of time gathering equipment and supplies, working on logistics, and collaborating with other climbers who would be accompanying them on their expeditions. They gathered everything from protective gear, ropes, ice axes, and climbing shoes to high-quality cameras and necessary permits. The protagonist's preparations and training were exhaustive, covering every aspect of mountaineering. However, they were confident in their abilities and their training and were ready to take on the challenge of a lifetime. The protagonist has undergone extensive training to prepare for the climb and make necessary preparations. However, An equally essential aspect of this preparation is assembling the right support team and gear for the climb. The support team plays a crucial role in any climbing expedition. They are responsible for offering assistance, guidance, and safety measures to the climbers. The protagonist understands that experienced support team members can make a significant difference in the outcome of their climb. Therefore, they spend significant time and effort finding the right members for their team. The protagonist looks for the support team members who possess experience, skills, and knowledge in mountain climbing. Their team members should have climbed similar mountains and be aware of the specific challenges and risks involved with the specific peak the protagonist plans to climb. The protagonist also considers individuals who are excellent team players, trustworthy, and have strong communication skills. In addition to the support team, the protagonist understands the importance of finding the correct gear for the climb. Climbing gear is crucial, and it is essential to find the best equipment that can stand up to harsh environments and challenging terrain. The protagonist spends significant time researching and procuring the best gear for the climb. They look for quality climbing ropes that can withstand intense tension and stress, durable climbing shoes, and ice axes that provide better grip on icy surfaces. They check their gear meticulously to ensure that everything is in top condition. The protagonist realizes that with the right equipment, they will be able to climb more safely and confidently. The protagonist also considers other essential gear like tent, sleeping bag, portable stove, high-quality cameras, and other equipment. They ensure that their gear is lightweight while still being durable and has all the necessary features to provide the necessary safety and comfort during the climb. It is imperative to focus on finding the right support team members and gear while preparing for an expedition. With the right support team and equipment, the protagonist realizes that they will have the best chance of a successful climb, enjoy their experience to the fullest, and stay safe and secure throughout the trek. Preparing for a climb of this magnitude is not easy. The protagonist had to make significant emotional and financial sacrifices to be ready mentally and physically for the expedition. Emotionally, the protagonist knew they would have to leave their loved ones behind for an extended period. This would mean missing important family events and sacrificing time with their friends and family. The protagonist also had to give up their daily routines and hobbies to focus entirely on their training and preparation. Furthermore, the protagonist had to overcome a sense of fear and anxiety that came with the extreme challenges of mountain climbing. They knew that climbing at high altitudes could potentially pose a significant risk to their life. Thus, the protagonist adopted a rigorous mental training regime to develop resilience to overcome their emotions and anxiety. Financially, the protagonist had to invest a significant sum of money into procuring the best gear, hiring guides and support teams, and purchasing the necessary insurance. Climbing gear and other equipment are not cheap, and the protagonist spent a considerable amount of money to make sure they would be well equipped for the expedition. Additionally, the protagonist had to forego other significant expenses in their life, such as buying a new car, taking vacations, and evening dinners with friends and family, to save enough money for the climb. The protagonist had to work hard to find sponsors and partners to help alleviate the financial burden of the climb. They spent countless hours writing grant proposals, networking, and pursuing potential sponsors and supporters to help fund their preparations and gear. It was a grueling process, but the protagonist understood that it was essential to remove the financial burden. The protagonist realized that preparing for the climb demanded significant emotional and financial sacrifices. Although it meant that they had to forego many things that were essential in their life, the protagonist understood it was a necessary sacrifice to achieve their dream of climbing some of the world's highest peaks. Preparing for a climb of this magnitude requires an enormous amount of time, effort, and dedication. However, the protagonist realized that they had to manage the demands of their personal and professional life while preparing for the climb. The protagonist had to find a balance between their work and training schedule. They had a full-time job, and while their employer was supportive of their endeavors, work deadlines, meetings, and projects added to the already busy schedule. The protagonist realized they had to be strategic in managing their time and setting clear priorities to ensure they did not compromise their work commitments. The protagonist also faced challenges in managing their personal life while preparing for the climb. They had to balance their time between training, spend time with their loved ones, and take care of other personal commitments. The protagonist understood that they had to set realistic goals and expectations and communicate effectively with their loved ones about their limitations. Additionally, the protagonist had to take care of their mental and physical health while preparing for the climb. This required allocating sufficient time for rest, sleep, and self-care activities like yoga, meditation, and regular health checkups. The protagonist understood that neglecting their well-being could potentially lead to burnout or health complications, which would affect their training and preparation. Furthermore, the protagonist faced numerous logistical challenges while preparing for the climb. They had to plan and coordinate their training schedules, climbing expeditions, and gear checklist. Additionally, they had to procure essential documents like passports, visas, and permits to undertake the climb. While preparing for the climb, the protagonist encountered numerous challenges in managing their personal and professional obligations. However, by prioritizing their commitments, taking care of their well-being, and being strategic in their approach, they were able to find a balance between their personal and professional life while preparing for this incredible feat. One early morning, the protagonist and their team began their ascent. They had been preparing for this moment for months and were excited to finally make their way up the mountain. However, they soon realized that climbing to such altitudes was not an easy task. As they reached higher elevations, the air became thin, making it harder to breathe. The protagonist felt a throbbing headache and nausea, and their climbing speed slowed as their energy levels dropped. Despite these physical challenges, the protagonist persisted and continued pushing upwards, determined to achieve their goal. The mental challenges were equally daunting. The cold, dark, and silent mountain environment was eerie, and the protagonist struggled to maintain focus and motivation. They missed their family and friends and felt alone and vulnerable against the mountain's might. Every step felt like an arduous task, and negative thoughts and self-doubt crept in. However, the protagonist realized that they had to overcome these mental barriers to continue with their ascent. They dug deep, reminding themselves of the reasons why they had undertaken this challenge and kept pushing forward, step by step. Then, the weather turned against them. Strong winds and snowfall made it dangerous to continue. They had to halt and await the changing weather before resuming the ascent. The break provided a much-needed rest, and the protagonist regained their focus and motivation. As the protagonist and their team resumed their climb, the steep terrain and icy conditions made it even more challenging. They had to be careful with every step, ensuring they had a firm grip on the rock and ice. Finally, they reached the summit, but the celebration was short-lived. They had to start their descent since climbing down in such high altitudes was equally challenging. The descent was also not without its challenges. The protagonist slipped several times and almost fell. They felt physically and mentally exhausted, and their strength and will were tested repeatedly. However, they kept pushing themselves, putting one foot in front of another, until they finally reached the base camp. Climbing a high-altitude mountain requires not only physical strength but also grit, determination, and resilience. The protagonist experienced firsthand the physical and mental challenges associated with such feats. Despite the hardships, the protagonist persevered, demonstrating that anything is possible with determination and hard work. Mountaineering is an exhilarating and rewarding activity, however, it also carries a significant level of unpredictability and danger. The sport involves navigating unknown terrains and enduring harsh weather conditions, making it challenging, unpredictable and, at times, fatal. Firstly, weather conditions are often unpredictable, and mountaineers find themselves in situations where they encounter extreme weather conditions. These range from heavy snowfall, lightning storms, high winds, avalanches, and blizzards. Climbers must always take into account the prevailing weather conditions and adapt their routes accordingly, sometimes abandoning all attempts to climb the peak for safety reasons. Secondly, physical hazards are significant when mountaineering, including altitude sickness, falls, hypothermia, and dehydration. Many climbers can sustain significant physical injuries during their climbs. Altitude sickness is particularly a concern for mountaineers. Long stays in high altitudes may lead to altitude sickness that can be fatal. It is crucial for mountaineers to be well versed in identifying symptoms of any physical risks and making necessary adjustments to their plans. Thirdly, the reliance on ropes, harnesses, crampons, ice axes, and other equipment puts mountaineers at risk of equipment failures. Moreover, rutted and slippery roads, unstable rock surfaces, and uncertain weather conditions could cause equipment damage or present dangerous situations if not appropriately secured. The involvement of human judgment in mountaineering amplifies the unpredictability and risk factors. The climbers make decisions that affect their and others' lives, hence the importance of sound judgment and caution, balancing their desire to achieve their mountain climbing goals with safety considerations. Despite the dangers, mountaineers continue to push themselves, and some even attempt to shatter existing altitude records. Climbing Mount Everest and other high-altitude peaks is a prime example. These adventurers continue to challenge the limits of what is possible, inspiring us with their brave souls. Nonetheless, it is essential to acknowledge the significant unpredictable and inherent dangers to mountaineering. To conclude, the unpredictability and inherent dangers in mountaineering are significant, but skilled and prepared climbers can reduce or avoid their effects through proper equipment, physical preparation, assessing weather, monitoring symptoms of altitude sickness, and sound judgment. Seeking guidance from experienced climbers, experts, and other support systems are crucial in minimizing the danger. The protagonist's journey in mountaineering was not without its fair share of obstacles. They encountered various challenges that tested their physical and mental capacity. Some of the biggest hurdles the protagonist faced during their climbs include harsh weather conditions, altitude sickness, and technical difficulties. One of the most significant obstacles the protagonist faced was harsh weather conditions. They encountered heavy snowfall, strong winds, and freezing temperatures on several climbs. During one of their climbs, the team found themselves in the midst of a storm that caused several climbers to turn back. The protagonist and their team had to wait for the weather to clear before continuing, putting them behind schedule. Altitude sickness was another significant challenge the protagonist faced. They experienced headaches, nausea, and fatigue at high altitude, which threatened to derail their climbing objectives. During one of their climbs, one of the team members had to be airlifted to a lower altitude to recover from the effects of altitude sickness. On another climb, a teammate had a severe bout of altitude sickness and had to be placed on oxygen therapy. The rest of the team had to carry the equipment and supplies, causing a significant delay in their progress. Technical difficulties were also a persistent obstacle for the protagonist. They encountered steep and icy terrain, which required specialized skills and equipment. During one of their climbs, the protagonist's team faced a tricky rock face that required careful navigation. This obstacle caused a significant delay and put the team's safety at risk. The protagonist's own physical and mental stamina faced their most significant challenge at high altitudes. The climb required long hours of movement in a harsh environment, which tested the protagonist's endurance. They had to overcome fatigue and mental exhaustion to keep moving forward. Despite the obstacles they encountered, the protagonist persevered, drawing on their resilience, determination, and teamwork to overcome the challenges. Every obstacle provided a learning opportunity, making them a better climber and enabling them to take on bigger challenges in the future. Mountaineering is an unpredictable and challenging sport. The protagonist faced several obstacles including harsh weather conditions, altitude sickness, technical difficulties, and personal stamina. However, each obstacle presented an opportunity for them to grow as a climber and test their limits. Through it all, the protagonist emerged victorious, inspiring and serving as a role model for aspiring mountaineers and adventurers alike. The protagonist's journey in mountaineering was not always a smooth one. They faced numerous obstacles and setbacks during their climbs, but the protagonist's resilience and determination allowed them to persevere despite the odds. They bounced back from disappointment, took setbacks as learning opportunities, and continued on their journey. One of the defining moments of the protagonist's perseverance came during their attempt to climb Mount Everest. They had trained for months, neither spare effort nor expense, but on the day of the climb, their team had to turn back due to deteriorating weather conditions. Despite the disappointment, the protagonist refused to give up. They regrouped and decided to attempt the climb the next day, even though it meant delaying their ascent. On another occasion, during a particularly challenging climb, the protagonist experienced severe altitude sickness. The team had to delay their progress significantly as they came up with a plan to get the protagonist to a lower altitude. They lost valuable time, but the protagonist remained focused on their goal and continued to push forward. The protagonist's perseverance extended to their preparation and training for each climb. They recognized that they needed to work hard and remain disciplined to achieve their objectives. They sought out experienced climbers and trainers, studied the terrain and weather conditions, and worked to strengthen their physical fitness. Moreover, when faced with technical challenges, the protagonist remained calm and composed, drawing on their training and skills to navigate treacherous and unknown terrain successfully. They viewed any mistake or setback as a learning opportunity, analyzing what went wrong and developing solutions for future climbs. The protagonist's determination to persist despite the odds made them an inspiration to others. They never lost sight of their goals, and in doing so, they accomplished numerous feats that would have been impossible without their resilience and perseverance. The protagonist's perseverance and resilience in mountaineering are a testament to their unwavering determination to succeed. They faced numerous setbacks and challenges, but they never gave up, always finding ways to bounce back and continue on their journey. The protagonist's journey in mountaineering is a testament to the human spirit's indomitable will and determination to overcome any obstacle, inspiring us all to pursue our goals with passion and perseverance.